people, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of my eyeshadow palette collection for 2023. This is the mini series surrounding my eyeshadow palette collection that I'm doing in the month of December. Today I'm going to show you 25 colorful eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. I may show you swatches and share some of my favorite shades within those palettes. I am very glad to hear that you all are enjoying this series, and I've also received a request from you to include some of my blue and purple eyeshadow palettes that I have in my collection. Because we're talking about all colorful, most colorful eyeshadow palettes here that I have on my stash, I will leave the timestamps in this video where I will be talking more about more blue palettes. However, throughout this video, you will see 25 very colorful eyeshadow palettes, and some of them will have blues and purples in them and some other shades. So it's going to be a nice mixture of a lot of different bright colors, and some of them are muted but still colorful. So these are the most colorful palettes that I have in my collection at the moment. But before we get started, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Eve and I love all things beauty. Here on my channel, I share about beauty and lifestyle. I upload new videos every week, and if that sounds interesting to you, I hope you enjoy this video and consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you in my future videos. And now, without further ado, let's dive into my colorful eyeshadow palette collection. Because these are mini series and I'm talking about all my eyeshadow palette in different categories, there are some palettes that would fit only into a specific category and some palettes you will see overlapping. So if you've been watching all the episodes in this mini series, there is a chance you might be seeing some very few repetitive palettes that just make in from category to categories because they do fit into those categories. So I just wanted to get that out of the way just in case, and not in any particular order. Let's start from this palette that you may have already seen in my previous videos. This is Beaute Ambience Palette. This palette is one of my favorite colorful palettes. It's definitely more of a fall vibe here, and we do have a little bit of a grungy moment going on here. But the formula is beautiful, pigmented, and very easy to work with. Beautiful shimmers. Some of these matte shades are just super stunning. And if we're talking about some bright shades like purples, this shade is my favorite in the palette. This shade right here, the mustard shade right here. Some of the shades just as a color, they are gorgeous. Look at these shades together. Like the orange and purple are just breathtaking. And these two shades, I mean, these are stunning, absolutely stunning shades. I think they're super flattering, very unique in their own way. I really love Beaute formula. This is my only palette from them. I'm definitely keeping my eyes out on the new launches they're going to have in the future. This is not your shy formulas. Very pigmented formula, very bright, beautiful looks, very impressive shimmers. At the same time, very lovely formula to work with. This is definitely quite a special, colorful palette in my collection. The next very special, colorful palette in my collection, who is surprised, is Colourpop Hocus Pocus 2. I've talked about this palette quite a bit on my channel. This color story is just the most adorable. I really love the pops of color here, the purples, the oranges, the greens, and here on the sides you do have your cool tone neutrals, very traditional, and your browns. You can definitely tone down your looks a little bit. One of my favorite palettes just generally in my collection. The formula is really beautiful, both shimmers and mattes, and I've used this palette recently for my Halloween look. This shimmer is my favorite. This purple is gorgeous. The oranges, look at these shades. They are so stunning, super pigmented. The shimmers are not your super foily ones, but they do have a really nice pigment and they are just beautiful and smooth. This shade is very, very special in my collection. I don't have anything like this. It's almost like a purple, but it has a hint of undertone of fuchsia in it. It's very, very stunning. I do really love this quad right here, like the combinations of grays and these purples. I think I wore this specific look in one of my videos. This palette unfortunately was discontinued. It was a seasonal launch last year. I'm very happy I picked it up, but hopefully they will bring it back so more people can enjoy. One of my recent favorite palettes that joined my collection this year because it was this year's launch. This is also my very first and the only blend NOMAD Cosmetics eyeshadow palette, Sugar and Grunge. At the moment, I'm trying not to buy very large palette. I am more into 18 shades and under at the moment. However, I was very curious about the brand's formula and this color story appealed very much to me. For me, these are comfortable colors. I feel comfortable with greens. I feel comfortable with burgundies. Grays, not so much. However, I think that this gray is actually very, very pretty. I do want to create a look on camera with that shade because it is a beautiful, like, look at this pigment. Like, would you look at this pigment? This is stunning. And this shade, this row right here is very useful if you want to neutralize your looks also, but These are absolutely stunning. There's so much pigment. I've featured this palette quite a few times since summer, since the day I got it in several of my videos. And you probably have seen the swatches there of the entire palette. The swatches are absolutely insane. The shimmers in this palette are also super beautiful. I believe I've already talked about this palette in my best shimmer shades. That episode of this series is already out, so you can also see the shimmers in there. Another very special colorful palette to my collection, Garden by Juvia's. I think I've spoken about this palette this year so much. These shades, more of your toppers, I'm talking specifically about shimmers, they can also be built up to an intensity, but I also want to show you some of the mattes here. The mattes, obviously this palette is a little bit more of your pastel option, but some of the matte shades here, they are pigments and they require a little bit different technique. But look at the shades, look at the swatch. Gorgeous. Like the purple one is also super beautiful. Like, how do you not like that? I featured this palette for a very beautiful like pastel summery look in one of my Chatty Get Ready With Me videos, and you can see there the shimmers are very beautiful. They can perform like toppers. You can sheer them out and they give you very glossy wet effect, but also the matte formulas are very, very pretty. One colorful palette that I wanted to mention here is Jewels and Gem palette from Odin's Eye. It is not your typical colorful palette, like muted colorful option for neutrals lover. If you do not love those super bright primary colors, you would love a little bit of color but have it muted, like toned down like 5 notches. This could be a good area to start with because some of these shades are so flattering. Just the entire palette, I feel like it's just super, super flattering. I'm gonna swatch some of the mattes for you here. Look how beautiful these are. All these shades are gorgeous on their own. However, they also blend into each other really well. This color story is just so cohesive. You may have seen this palette already in a few of my previous episodes in this series because this palette is just exceptionally good. It fits into so many categories. It brings so much to the table. I personally find this color story very, very interesting and inspiring because there's just so many beautiful, colorful combinations that you can come up with. Even though I am a neutrals lover to the core, however, when it comes to colors, this is something that I'm definitely comfortable wearing on every day. Another very famous palette, Lost in Los Angeles from ABH Cosmetics. This palette just brings smile to my face. I don't know, all these shades are just so happy. I absolutely love this blue shade, the gold. All these pastel shades are very, very stunning. Look at these. Look how gorgeous these are. I believe this palette is still available on ABH Cosmetics website. I would totally buy this palette again. This is one of many colorful palettes that I have in my collection that I actually remember and want to reach for firsthand, right? Whenever I do any type of colorful looks, this is one of the maybe top 5 palettes that I always pull out to see if I want to use any of the shades. And a lot of times I do. Let me swatch the shades for you because this is stunning. Look at this beautiful like blue tone icy gorgeousness. This is such a beautiful formula. If BH Cosmetics brings this formula or keeps this formula now that they're under Makeup Revolution, we would all be very happy. So this is another palette that I'm really, really liking, the Magic Mini by Juvia's Place. The mattes are okay here, but this is also a little bit drier formula for the mattes. They are more of your pigments. I've reached for this palette quite a bit for shimmers. Look at these. Look at the green, yellow. I really like this palette because it does have this beautiful creamy formula of shimmers. Another very colorful palette, very special and pretty unique of its kind to my collection, Fade into Hue Colourpop. This is your rainbow palette, basically. I've created some pretty monochromatic single looks out of this palette using just the shades that are here. However, this is pretty much a companion palette for me. I like to pull this out for some Halloween looks or just do pops of color here and there. This is, I think, the only rainbow palette that I have in my collection, and I know there's so many out there, but I don't really use colors like this on a daily basis, but this palette definitely comes in very handy. Let me show you some of the very beautiful swatches. Like, I really love this blue row. I think it's very, very pretty. I also very much love the pinks, so I think these are very, very pretty shades. Look at this shade. Like, this is one of the prettiest blues I have in my collection. This palette definitely wins me over with the purples and blues. The next one is a Trick or Treat palette, Odin's Eye and Angelica collaboration. This was launched for Halloween this year. This palette has some neutrality, to my opinion. So I consider burgundies and greens somewhat neutrals. I really love the mustardy and yellow shades, but I do love some pop of color. I've already decided that I'm going to be using this palette for this green corner for my Grinch look. When I watch my Grinch movie, I watch a Grinch movie every year. This is a tradition for me. I may film this for short format, or maybe I'll show to you in the stories on my Instagram. So I will show to you somehow, but I am very, very excited to use this because look how beautiful And also let me show you this orange and red. Orange and red, I don't really have too many oranges and reds in my collection, but look how beautiful and fun. This green shade is just so beautiful and smooth. I've already created several looks out of this palette. This formula is pretty easy to work with. I had no difficulty like blending shades into each other. This shade is also absolutely stunning. Do you see how it gives you a little bit more of like teal undertone? Such a weird angle on my hand, I apologize, but I'm running out of fingers, but this is a very, very pretty reflect. This shade is just such a nice touch, unexpected, and it goes very well with a lot of different color combinations here. This is also a pretty famous palette on my channel, Allure 3 from Juvia's Place. I adore this color story. I just absolutely adore this color story. This seems like a brown tone, but it's not. It's like a very deep burgundy and it's stunning. It's just so beautiful, and I'm glad they didn't put another brown tone here and just put burgundy. This color story is just so beautiful and I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite palettes in my collection. This blue tone is just so beautiful. Look how pretty this is. I just absolutely love it. It looks much prettier when you do a full look with it than just a swatch, but it's just such a beautiful pearlescent blue tone, such a special shade, and these are so much fun. Another very fun palette, Michaela and Glamlight collab. I really like the packaging, but this color story is probably one of the most colorful palettes that I have in my collection. After Fade into Hue from Colourpop Rainbow palette, this is the next colorful palette that I have. I really love all these shades, and I also really appreciate the neutral tones here because I am a neutrals lover and I like to see, especially these peachy orangey ones. These are just so beautiful. This matte formula, however, here is a little bit, this is their older formula and it's a little bit drier, but it's still very workable. Glamlight improved their formula to the next level. They just took it to the next level. The shimmers are already stunning in this palette. They were just gorgeous shimmers here, beautiful, full pigment, very foily, do not crease, there's no fallout. They're absolutely stunning shimmer formulas, but the mattes were a little bit more on a drier side, even though the pigment was there. Look at these shades, and I absolutely have to swatch this one for you. Again, I'm doing this weird angle, but look how stunning this is. I also really enjoy the teals here and like this green. Look at this green, like it's so pretty. Anyway, they definitely improved their formula since then. I don't really feature this palette too much on my channel, but here and there you would see it because it's one of the more colorful palettes in my collection. So this palette is from What's Up Beauty Dragon Eye palette. This is a very new palette, and this is my very first palette from What's Up Beauty. This packaging is everything. I really love how compact this palette is. Look how small this is. However, you do get this full color story. I'm just gonna specifically swatch the special shades here, because these are one of the best shimmers in my collection. So this is a very new palette for me. I only got it a few weeks ago, and the video with the shimmer I pre-filmed before that. So that's why this palette was not included, but stunning, stunning formula. I really love the variety of undertones here. So you get a little bit more like purpley, grungy area, and then you get a little bit more of neutrality here. The shimmers are through the roof. That's a duochrome. This is a duochrome. That's a stunner. I don't even have words because they speak for themselves. I'll talk a little bit more about it when I do my ranking video, so stay tuned for that, but this is a stunner. So the next colorful palette that I have here is In the Springs from Colourpop. This was their last summer's launch, and this palette very much appealed to me. I really love the orangey tones here. This is my favorite shade in the entire palette. Look how beautiful and fun this shade is. This is a very stunning shade. I also love the teals. I think they're absolutely stunning. Very good formula. This blue, light blue shade has a very wide base. It gives you so much opacity on the lid. It's such a high performing shade. I was very impressed. This shade, this blue shade right here, it's a beautiful like navy blue, but it feels a little bit drier than the rest of the mattes here. So it's not the bestest quality, but it's still workable. But I really love this summery color story. Between the oranges and teals, I think it's very, very pretty. So this next one was a Pat McGrath annual edition last year, Mega Celestial Nirvana. This is a pretty jumbo palette, but pretty colorful. I do enjoy this color story. I also really liked how they organized the palette, like in this vertical 6 pans, and I think the color stories are very beautiful and it's inspiring. It's inspiring palette for me. Shimmers are beautiful, mattes are beautiful. However, I think this palette was heavily overpriced. This is still the only annual edition, holiday edition from Pat McGrath for me, and I think I've seen enough. I passed on their holiday edition this year because I just didn't think of them as too inspirational. I thought that I already have everything that looks like that in my collection, but this palette color story I really enjoy. This palette is a new addition to my collection, Heather Austin and NOMAD Cosmetics. I really love this color story. This has a lot of different multichromes, duochromes, shades, a little bit of color here. So you have greenish corner, and then you have some burgundy, a little bit more neutral corner. I will swatch some of the shades for you here, some of the more colorful shades here, but look at these stunning shades. I absolutely have to swatch this. Look at this gorgeous blue purple shift. Stunning. This one is more of your beetle color, like green to gold. Stunning. This is my favorite shade in the palette. Stunning. It's like silver lilac to this beautiful rosy purple shade. It's absolutely gorgeous on lid. This one is a little bit more subtle. I mean, it's still a beautiful shimmer, but next to these three, kind of looks a little bit shy. This is definitely that very special, colorful palette that's a little bit elevated. I'm very happy that I picked it up, not from the first launch, but this year from the second launch. This palette is brand new to my collection. I haven't even touched it, you guys. I've been so busy in the last 2 months. I've had this palette in my possession for the past few weeks, but I have not even had a chance to dip my fingers in it. I absolutely love this package and it's so much fun. I love Alice in Wonderland movie and cartoon, and just the story generally, just so much fun. I think they captured the story pretty well here. It's very beautiful. Considering the fact that Sigma Beauty does a lot of neutral-ish palettes, a lot of different variations of neutral tones, which I'm all for it, but this is a very colorful palette for Sigma Beauty, and I could not pass on it, so I picked it up on a Black Friday. This is a palette that was launched last year. This is 12 Days of Lunar from Lunar Beauty. This was a palette that was put into an advent calendar form. I do have a dedicated video on this palette where I unboxed the entire advent calendar and put the palette together, created the look. I really love this. This is a neutral palette that has pops of color, like neutral palette with a twist, if you will. This palette is no longer available, unfortunately, because it was a holiday edition, that special edition for last year's. However, this palette I love and I want to keep in my collection for a while. This was the first time me trying eyeshadow palette formula from Lunar Beauty, and I was impressed. I was impressed with both mattes and shimmers. This palette also, obviously magnetic, all the pans are removable. I travel with a lot of these shades, some of the neutral shades for most part, but I also really love the green. This shade is spectacular. I really love this shade. I also really love this shade. These are just beautiful, and I will of course show you the yellow. Super pretty, very pigmented. Another super fun palette that I added to my collection this year is from NYX Ultimate Paradise Shock. They launched 4 of these palettes. I picked up this palette first, and then I added another one, which you will see later on in this video. So this palette is more of your neutral palette with a twist, right? There's some beautiful pops of color here. All these shades are so stunning. This shade is my absolute favorite. I love this shade. I use it for transition all the time. I use this one all the time. I featured this palette in so many of my videos, and I told you guys when I picked it up in summer, I couldn't stop using it. I had to force myself to put this palette away. Literally took it out of my own hands and put it in a drawer and I said, you gotta use something else. This palette is so beautiful. The shimmers are also very pretty. The oldie but a goodie palette that was discontinued, Jackie Aina and Anastasia Beverly Hills collaboration. This is going to be my forever favorite. This palette I actually picked up way after this palette was launched, but oh my god, this formula just feels like butter. My goodness. This shade is my favorite in the entire palette. It's so beautiful. This purple, the pink, this burgundy, so beautiful. This is just such a beautiful color story. I think this palette is just so gorgeous. I love this palette. I will forever love it. Another palette that was discontinued, but I do still have in my collection because I just simply love the color story and the formula. Look how stunning. How can you not like this? Look at these swatches. Insane. How would I ever let go of this palette when these shades do this to me? I just simply cannot. This is so stunning. Okay, guys, now let's get into my blue requested by you segment. I know you wanted to see more of my blue eyeshadow palettes next to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to swatch all the shades here, like not all of them, but some of the shades. So you would just kind of see the range and the shimmers together or the mattes together. Most of these palettes you've seen on my channel. There is one new palette that you have not seen yet because I just purchased it recently around Halloween. So I haven't really done anything with this palette yet. Let's get into the palettes. So the first one that makes an appearance, Blueberry Muffin from ABH Cosmetics. It has some absolutely stunning shades. How gorgeous is this shade? Are you kidding me with this swatch? This is definitely a very curated palette. This is going to be a forever favorite, very unique palette to my collection. The quality is superb. The next palette, very famous on my channel because I absolutely adore this. I love blue tones. I obviously do not wear them on a daily basis, but whenever I want to create a blue look, this is the color story that just inspires me so much. This shade, this shade is so beautiful. This is the glittery shade, but it is very soft. It's not scratchy at all. My eyes tolerate this very nicely. This shade is very nice, but it's more of like your pigment. It's very, very rich. Look at this. Wow. Stunning. I am in a very awkward angle here, and I simply cannot turn my arm any further, but look at this matte swatch. This palette is magic. I have so much love for it. I love my NABLA eyeshadow palettes. I have a lot of them. I do have the entire like ranking of all my NABLA eyeshadow palettes. This is one of my favorite formulas in my collection. I just find the color stories are beautiful and inspiring, and I just love their formulas. They do have different variations of mattes and shimmers. They have cream mattes, they have regular mattes. Then there's different shimmer formulas as well, from toppers to duochromes to you name it, like everything. They really have so many different options, and I love all of them. I absolutely love this palette. It's Little by Mighty. Another palette that stole my heart this year was this Vintage Jean Baby from NYX Cosmetics as well. I really love that it does have like neutral rose here. These transitional shades, like these clay looking pinky dusty rose shades, are stunning. I use them all the time. I literally use them all the time. They're so gorgeous. Look at this shade. I will show you the silver swatch also because it's just so beautiful. Look at the silver. Are you kidding? I've created some very beautiful looks out of this, and I just continue reaching for this palette. I love this palette so much. The palette that I told you is new to my collection, Krampus Continued from Ladybug Glow. This was their Halloween launch. I've never tried anything from the brand. This is my absolutely first palette. This is very kind of cool tone, a very grungy moment here. This color story appealed to me so much. However, you get very beautiful like blue tones here. This row right here, they are special shades. They're more of your like duochromes, very shifty shades. They are available through an Etsy shop. This is the only place I believe that you can purchase this palette. Quality of the mattes is absolutely stunning. Look at this beautiful mossy green. I live for this shade. So stunning. This is the one that I was wearing in one of my recent videos. This is so beautiful and lit. I feel like right now this is not doing it any justice. I definitely would need a better lighting. This shade is very pretty. Look how nice. This is the green one. I don't know why I swatched the green one with the blues, but it's there, right? The special shimmers are very stunning here. I will talk about this palette actually in my next ranking video, so stay tuned if you want to see like the full intake on this. So last but not least, Natasha Denona Mini TrioChrome palette. I do have a dedicated video on this palette, you guys. If you missed that one, if you want to see, this shade is my favorite. This is supposed to be a beautiful TrioChrome shade, but it doesn't shift as much. There's definitely a slight shift, and it's very nice and thin formula, but as you can see, it's not very shifty. The camera doesn't pick up the shift at all. I applied it in my video, I think, all over my lid, and it was just definitely noticeable that it does shift from blue to purple, but it's very, very subtle, like very elegant shift, let's say. It's definitely not a shift that you would see from indie brands. I hope this is what you wanted to see from your requests. I hope this was helpful, entertaining. Hope it answered some of your questions, put some things into perspective, which palette you would prefer better if you wanted to pick up some blue tones for yourself. Hope this was helpful for you. And if you, of course, have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to chat with you there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're having a really good month, a really good holiday season with your family, your loved ones. If you enjoyed this video, give this a big thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not yet a subscriber. I would love to have you here. And thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next videos. Bye.